I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Hello and welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast. I'm not Chris, as you can tell by the voice, it's George. For some reason I'm hosting for once. We're here as a part of Harry Potter Month doing the top 10 greatest Harry Potter moments, and I'm happy to introduce our special guest for today, Grace Castley.
Hello.
And we're going to be just talking about our favourite moments. We've got a list, we've got Chris's numbers on the side as well, so we're going to be speaking about them towards the end. And I've just got a reminder that Fantastic Beasts is now out. That's why we're doing Harry Potter Month. So be sure to check out our review on the channel. Hint, I did like it. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was good.
It's good signs. Right, so let's somehow get into this. We've come up with a weird algorithm that we just got kind of 5 each, and we've reordered them together.
Cut some out.
Yeah, we've got rid of a few. Some we're going to speak of that might not have as much. Some might not like the other person's moment. So in 10th place, I guess we can call them places.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Quidditch match from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
I don't like the first and second film, which may offend many of you, but that's I prefer Quidditch in the books for me.
Yeah, and I think same here. I mean, I've spoke before about how much I love Quidditch. I own a little Quidditch set. Don't own a broomstick because I don't have £300 to spare to buy one. But I think with the Quidditch matches, like, I love them because it's just so fun and different. And then when you get to the second one, you get Draco Malfoy in it, and the whole Nimbus 2001. So it's like the little schoolboy rivalry from like when they're at school, like someone you hate on the other football team, and it just made it funner. And then you've got Lucius Malfoy in the crowd, who everyone knows is my favourite character of all the films.
I like Ron's Quidditch scene.
In the sixth one?
Yeah, that's a good one. But I prefer it in the book, again. More of a book for the first.
I think with Quidditch, though, in general, like in the books, which I always say in the books now, Quidditch is a lot better, and especially in like the third film when you get the whole Quidditch Cup. But yeah. I think it's just kind of fun to see it play on screen, because it's just like the little childhood things, and then you get Gilderoy Lockhart coming in at the end, saving the day. I
think it's one of those things as well that people can reenact in real life. People are trying to do that. Quidditch is a thing that you can take and put in the real world. And
it's an official sport now at some universities. And it was on the news last week. They're doing the Quidditch Premier League across England now. There's going to be a West Midlands team. They haven't asked me to be chaser yet, which is a real shame.
We can live in hope.
But be sure I will be in that stadium. I'll forget going to Arsenal games, don't worry. So yeah, that's all. It's quite weird of that, because it's a favourite scene, and I kind of like it just because it's Quidditch, nothing more than that. So it's not as detailed as I think the next ones are going to be. Mm-hmm. So I'd say we're moving on to 9th, which is one of Grace's picks, which is the animation in the Deathly Hallows of the story of the three brothers.
Yeah, I think I like it so much because Hermione chases the sign so much. She's really looking to discover what it means. And then when she does discover it, she doesn't believe, but the others do. And I think just the way it's portrayed in the film is just really interesting. I think it captures people. And
I think with the scene, the animation's done like really well. Like it flows, like the pensive stuff, it's like the ink stuff, it kind of works really well.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of, I like the lore stuff. I mean, obviously you've read their books as well, so you like the sort of history aspect, which they don't show in the films, but I think it's really cool the way they do the Deathly Hallows animation stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, like when we get introduced to the three brothers,
I like that eventually you find out that they're linked to Harry.
Yeah, I mean, he's already got the invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
He does get the resurrection stone, which we'll be talking about later on. And he technically has the rights to the Elder Wand now. It's just in Voldemort's possession, not his.
Even though they found out about the Deathly Hallows, he still doesn't realise that he's in possession of them.
I think what's annoying though is in the grave at Godric's Hollow, they don't show it, whereas it's in the books they show that the brothers are there and stuff, whereas it doesn't really make as much sense. Especially now Fantastic Beasts, the Deathly Hallows is going to sort of tie into Grindelwald, so I think as the scene goes, it's quite a big one for like future building, although it is the last one, it's this kind of like added lore, which I think is quite fun.
Yeah, I like that the Deathly Hallows is left to Hermione, because even though it doesn't help defeat Voldemort at all, it was something that Dumbledore wanted to kind of push on her in a way, because it was what he wanted, and I think he knew obviously that Hermione would figure it out.
Yeah, and I think it's the same for everything Dumbledore leaves them, because each is certain to the individual. Obviously, Ron's got the Deluminator, But then with Hermione, she does eventually work it out, and you get the whole backstory with Eyeball Paul. I'm sorry, Zephinius Lovegood. I don't know how you pronounce his first name. If you haven't seen Kevin and Perry, he will always be Eyeball Paul. But no, it's quite a cool scene, I think. But it's just a nice scene. I think that's almost everything you can say on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Number 8 is mine, and it's in the very, very last film. And it's when Draco is called by his dad back over to the dark side, and he's really hesitant about going. And I just like it because I think when the films finish, how the characters are at those points is how you see them. And then so through all the films, Draco is seen as a baddie, and then in the end I think he's not.
What I love about this scene isn't necessarily the Draco stuff. I mean, I think it's really cool that you do get the sort of character development, that they've all got their sides. And I love the fact that Lucius wants Draco back, because at this point he's gone from the sort of the snobby hero that's got the long blonde hair and the clean chin.
He's a bit rough, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a bit rough. He's a bit hated on.
I think I like the fact that he doesn't move when his dad calls him.
Yeah.
He only goes when his mum does. I think he's looking at his dad like, you failed me.
Yeah, and I think as well he's a bit scared as well, especially when you go back to not Order of the Phoenix, the Half-Blood Prince, when he's scared Voldemort's going to kill him, but he does only come over because of Voldemort makes him, which leads to one of the funniest moments of all of the films, which is the incredible Voldemort hug, which is a brilliant gif on the internet. It's just, I mean, I love Voldemort. I haven't really spoke to you about him, but he's just so funny across all the films. Yeah. And I think the whole scene, not just Draco walking over, but
you see how awkward he is generally as a person.
Yeah.
He struggles to interact with other people.
It's the way he laughs to himself when Harry Potter is dead. And it's just so funny, and I love it. But it is quite a big scene, I think, for the entirety of it, because he's chosen his allegiance now to Hogwarts rather than the Death Eaters. Mm-hmm. So he's been brought up to be a Death Eater, essentially. Yeah. So I think that's quite a big moment for himself.
Yeah, it's a bit iconic, like, because he is still there wearing black, his famous black suit and polo neck. But yeah, just that whole scene, I think, is a good one. And I think it kind of starts with Draco, and then Neville then pipes up.
Yeah, with his brilliant speech, Neville wearing his Christmas
jumper.
Again,
Voldemort makes a little joke that he'd hoped for better.
No one responds to it, and then Harry's had enough, so he just climbs out of Hagrid's arms and runs away.
And then I think I like that Draco then does just leave with his mum, and then you do see Lucius kind of debating whether he's kind of running behind, but is he going to stay?
I do love Lucius, and in case people don't know this, what follows later, not in the book, but it's said in like J.K. Rowling's tweet and stuff, that the Malfoys are the only Death Eaters let off from being put in Azkaban, obviously because Narcissa saved Harry. Yeah. But also I think Harry's obviously saved Draco at this point. Draco saved Harry before that. So there's the mutual respect of them. Plus we don't want to see Lucius go back in Azkaban. And now Draco has a son who we're going to see in The Cursed Child in 14 months' time. Yeah. We've got our tickets.
Happening.
It was a very stressful day, but I've got 2 pairs of tickets. Check my Twitter to find reactions of people screaming and getting angry.
Jan 6, 2018.
Just prepare for 2018, not 2017.
Prepare for that social media update.
Definitely. Right, should we move on?
Yeah.
Number 7 is one of my picks. I've written it down as the Sirius truth, not as a joke thing, but it's the whole truth of Sirius from Prisoner of Azkaban. I know that this is in Chris's 5 as well, so we'll speak about it now. But the whole scene it's very different because there's no action or anything. It's essentially just Sirius, Lupin, and the kids talking with Snape for 5 minutes, and it's that moment where you finally find out that Sirius isn't the bad guy all along. They've built him up. The whole Azkaban posters screaming.
That whole film is you are built to think that
he's
Sirius
the bad
is
guy.
the one. Yeah.
And they've done it so well.
The whole scene in the Whomping Willow is just a really good scene.
And I think it's a bit different because it's very, Chris would say it's very Shakespeare, the way that Snape comes in and he's got his, I don't know what this is like, I thought I'd find you all here, in that amazing voice he does. Yeah. And then the kids are having none of it, so they all just Expelliarmus him into bed. That sounds really bad now.
Yeah, Harry's attacking Sirius there. He's trying to look out for you, mate.
But I think it's the whole of it, of the classic, like, I've done my waiting, 12 years of it in Azkaban, all the way to the way he screams Peter Pettigrew. But that's another thing I love about it, because they build up Peter Pettigrew's dead, and you get the scene of the map. And ultimately, he's alive and he's Scabbers, and I think what that resonates more is because we've had Scabbers for 2 films before, you would never think about it being like that. And then you kind of look at it in a different angle once you know this, that, okay, Ron always said Scabbers was really old, so it makes sense.
I think as well, Sirius, his character, the way he's portrayed, when he comes through, he does look really crazy. He comes across as really crazy. Like the way he speaks, like you said, like screaming Peter Pettigrew
and he just says as well that he just wants to kill them. He's like, only one will die tonight. So even at this point, they're building up him killing Harry still. And then he's like, no, not you, the rat. But even when he says rat, he like elaborates the rat word. And then
so it's really strange then when you see him in the next film and he's so conserved.
Yeah, he's got like his nice suit. He's like
velvet jacket.
His tattoos have disappeared off his chest because he's all suited and booted. And it just adds more to him. And then you get the kind of moment which I'm including just after, which is when he's standing outside the Whomping Willow, where he's like, what I would give to walk down there as a free man. Then ultimately you do get the sort of tragedy that, you know, Lupin it's full moon, Peter Pettigrew escapes, Sirius can't prove himself, so he's one of them characters I'll speak about a lot more, but he's one of the sort of tragic heroes in that he's got a godson that he never got to see, and as he sees him he thinks he'll be a free man, but he isn't. So it builds up to the scene, and it's just really well done.
I think Lupin's tied into that scene as well.
Yeah,
he has the same thing, like his friend has died.
Yeah, and he's
not his godfather, but
it's his best mate from school, and he thought Sirius Black killed him the whole time, whereas he finds out obviously a little bit earlier that Peter Pettigrew is alive still.
Yeah.
So you think for a minute that, oh my god, like Lupin's a bad guy, and Hermione says it's like he's a werewolf, you know, that's meant to be bad. And then, you know, Harry lets them talk about it, then you realise they're both the good guys still. So it's this good moment, and I think you've got to look at it that they were going to kill Peter Pettigrew, but they said, you know, Harry goes on about his father wouldn't have killed him, although he doesn't actually know his father.
Just what other people have said.
Yeah, and he gets a shock in the 5th film
when
about
he's bullying Snape.
His whole life.
I expected more from you, James. The next one is number 6, which I chose, and it's when Miss Weasley kills Bellatrix. I think everyone likes this scene that I've spoken to. People think Molly is very mumsy, isn't she? She's got lots of children, and I think throughout all the films, she has always wanted a daughter. And then with the whole "not my daughter, you bitch," I think it really hits home for people how much she wants to protect her child.
And I think with this one, it's because she's always so happy, like in every film. And then obviously there's the scene where she's like crying on Fred's body, and then you get this a few minutes later, and you can just see in her eyes that she's absolutely like not herself. Obviously her kids died, so she's in mourning. Bellatrix,
it's like something's just snapped in her, hasn't it?
Yeah, and
like I said, she's always like at home, she's always cooking, she's very like the host, she's a safe house, everyone comes to her.
And I don't think you expect her to be the one to kill her, given that like Bellatrix is laughing at her and Bellatrix has killed everyone. She's like turned the Nevilles insane.
I think she doesn't expect this to be coming from
Molly. And then she's kind of shocked because the first few spells Molly shoots out like the Avada Kedavra curse, and Bellatrix is like,
I think it does
shit.
take her off guard, definitely.
Yeah, and then it's odd how she dies. Like I don't know the spell. It is an odd
death. Yeah.
But it's a kind of, I'd rather Bellatrix have like an odd death because she's so like mental in a good way. Like
she's a big character.
Everyone loves her, and I think I mean we've read the books before we've seen the film, so the first time you've seen it, I think when she shouted "Not my daughter, you bitch," like you could just hear a pin drop at this, and like everyone just went like ooh,
because it was Ron has swore like a few times, but this one was
it was the mum factor, and I think you're taking Molly, you know, she's so happy and she's just there like her eyes have got bags and she's just not having any of it. So she just gets on the table on the Great Hall as well. It's almost like the jewel from the second film.
Yeah.
You know, the whole little table set.
Yeah.
And then she just absolutely annihilates Bellatrix.
Yeah, it is strange because if I had to say between the two of them, if they had a duel, I would have picked Bellatrix to win.
I think most people would.
Yeah, and I think that's...
I don't think if Bellatrix could come back, I don't think she'd like the fact she'd like... lost.
I think she would have liked to have been killed by someone else.
Maybe Neville.
Yeah, Neville would have been a good one.
Because I think...
very apt.
JK said like before, I think if you guys have Twitter, you need to follow JK Rowling because obviously she created everything.
But and she does respond to tweets as well.
She's the encyclopedia for Harry Potter. If you have a question, you just have to ask it to her, and obviously if she sees it, she might reply. But there's no point asking her about Fantastic Beasts 2 because obviously you don't know yet, in which she said. But I think she mentioned before that she said that she originally had Neville to kill Bellatrix to avenge his parents, and then she said, I think it means more if you've got the mother angle to it, because you wouldn't expect Molly to kill her, but also I wouldn't like it if Neville had killed her because it doesn't suit Neville.
Yeah.
I like the fact he killed Nagini because that was like perfect, I think, for him.
I don't think he could have killed Nagini and Bellatrix. Out of the two, I would probably go for Nagini.
Yeah, definitely, and it suits it better because he gets the whole sword out of the hat, and it's, you know, his jumper, his Christmas jumper, which was a big meme.
I think maybe I would have liked to see Hermione kill Bellatrix.
That would have been interesting,
yeah.
Given she tortured her as well.
She did torture her, yeah.
Because on the original list, you did mention the torture scene.
I did like that.
But yeah. it's a great character moment, I think, for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5.
Yep.
This is my pick. It's a bit of a cheat because it's kind of 3 moments in one, but they all continue across.
It's such a big scene, isn't it, from start to finish? They all roll into.
They all, yeah. So for those that wouldn't have worked out based off my Order of the Phoenix review, it is Sirius's death / the Dumbledore duel / possession scene, and I think the first time I saw this film was when I was younger, and we hadn't seen a proper duel, and like I think when I saw it, it was so cool seeing all the Order fighting all the Death Eaters. And then obviously you ultimately get Sirius's death, which is like tragic in itself because obviously there's the whole build-up of him battering Lucius, and then just out of nowhere Bellatrix just apparates and just kills him on the spot.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about that, I know I'm going off on a tangent with it, but he kind of like shakes off the injury, then you just see him go into the veil, and then it's everything after with Harry sort of not screaming because they put the music over the top, but like Lupin's holding him back. Yeah,
that's his friend, I think. Yeah, it's just a lot of emotion in the scene, I think.
And it works so well because obviously Bellatrix is like, she's Sirius's cousin, and they establish that. And I mean,
at the start of the film, that's kind of the things that they make.
And then she says in the book that she wants to kill every person in the Order that's related to her that isn't sort of in the Death Eaters. So you've got the whole mentalist build up.
Yeah.
And then she's just sort of laughing about it and running around afterwards.
Yeah.
But that ties into the next part, which is the Dumbledore v Voldemort duel.
Yeah.
Which is
I think it is such a big duel because it is, like you said, the first time you see a serious duel that's not at school.
Yeah, and I think with this, because you've got it's the first proper time you see Dumbledore as well, like outright using magic.
Yeah. I think the film is a turning point in the books as well, where it starts to become a bit more serious, whereas he is actually back now, whereas before it was kind of whispered. Obviously Harry believes it.
Yeah, and it's the whole taking sides bit, and then you've got Voldemort who's just in the middle of the Ministry of Magic, just going mental. He's doing his thing, laughing to himself, dancing about in his bare feet, which
he doesn't like shoes.
I've always
established over those.
Even in Deathly Hallows, he's killed all the goblins. He's just walking in their blood. You know, he doesn't want to shower. It's disgusting. He's got yellow finger toenails as well, which is nasty.
Yeah.
But I think with the duel, it's really cool to see the adult sort of fighting side of things.
I think you're led to believe as well that Voldemort is really, really powerful, and even though I think Dumbledore might struggle a little bit in the duel, it does just show how good Dumbledore is as well.
Yeah, because they've always spoke of up in this bit like Dumbledore's this amazing guy, he can do everything. Obviously now we're going to see all this in Fantastic Beasts when you get to the famous Grindelwald battle, but that's him in his prime, if you could say.
Yeah.
Whereas the sort of aging Dumbledore, Voldemort's like, you know, you're going to die tonight.
And I think Voldemort thinks that he is going to win.
Yeah, and he's got that cockiness of when he gets the sort of the fire snake thing, he's kind of laughing to himself, but Dumbledore takes it out straight away.
Yeah.
It's just every time one of them attacks, the other one's got such like a good outcome for the other.
I feel like as well, Voldemort isn't winning as much as he'd like to during that duel, and I think that's why he then possesses Harry. He then like changes tactics. Because
he just kind of like flies into him.
Yeah, which he could have done from the start if he wanted to, kind of thing.
And I think with the possession scene, the reason I kind of tagged it in is because obviously I'm really into my soundtracks and stuff, and when he's sort of possessing Harry, it's this really good like music over the top. And I've seen an interview with the sort of soundtrack guy, and he said that people were crying when they were recording it because it's so powerful. Like I've never been that deep of something like that. But obviously if you're recording it's different. But I think the whole montage of sort of Harry seeing everyone when he was younger, you get the 5-year build up, and then he kind of defeats Voldemort, who's doing the really hilarious noises inside of Harry's head.
Yeah. I think as well when there's it's like little shards of sand, isn't it, like all around him, like from the glass.
Yeah.
And I think when you see Dumbledore as well, he doesn't want to penetrate it either. Like, this is kind of magic that he's unfamiliar with.
Yeah, because he's kind of, I mean, in the books, you know, they kind of speak about Dumbledore's sort of thought about the possession stuff, which is, if you guys don't know why Dumbledore blanks Harry all year, it's because he thinks the possession angle. Mm-hmm. And then it all leads up to the moment where Harry finally gets Voldemort out of him.
And I think it confirms it for Dumbledore, and then I think he realises that the connection between them is stronger than
what he thought before.
Yeah.
And especially, obviously, you get the future build-up that he is a Horcrux.
And then it ties into all of that, and I think that's when Dumbledore starts pairing
two
and two together.
Which is the whole raising a pig for slaughter line, which we'll get to later on.
Yeah, can't miss that out. Number 4 was my choice, and it's when Harry and Hermione are dancing in the tent. And I think I like this scene so much because it shows how strong their friendship is. And I think we were speaking like before we started recording, and previously, it's always been Hermione to protect Harry, like in the 3rd film. Like when you think Sirius is going to kill him, like Hermione's the first to step in front of him. She's kind of always there with a second plan. And then in this, it's the first time Harry really comforts Hermione properly, other than when Ron is getting with Lavender and there's the crying scene on the stairs and Harry's there for them. But I think this one just shows that they're a bit older. Ron isn't coming back. Hermione has been sad for like a really long time, and just the whole scene, I think the music, I just really like it all.
And I think it's one of them scenes that it like kind of develops the characters, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Because
it's so off the beat. It wasn't, I mean, J.K. Rowling has said in interviews that it wasn't in the books, but it's one of her favourite scenes in the entire franchise, which says a lot because it is one of them moments where, I mean, they both grew up with Muggle radio. Mm-hmm. Muggle radio is just normal radio to us, but it's the fact that you finally get like a normal song that we're used to hearing outside of the Harry Potter films. And it's just that moment where they're both old now. Yeah. They've hit the age and they're there for each other.
I think as well with their friendship, with Ron and Hermione, that it isn't a friendship. There's more of a love interest there. Whereas with Harry and Hermione, it is a male and a female friendship, and there's nothing between it other than friendship. And I think that's really, really strong because I don't think you really see that through any other characters in the book.
No, especially with Harry
or the film.
With Harry and Hermione, it's just not obvious they're never going to get together, but they kind of plant the seeds of Ron and Hermione from the earlier films.
Yeah.
And even the way when they first meet, Hermione's like, and you are, and he's just eating like Ron Weasley. It's the sort of the opposite of matches which kind of work in their favour. But I think when you do hit the later films, like you said, of Half-Blood Prince, the scene on the stairs when they're crying, it's quite important to the characters because they're at an age now where they do look at relationships and stuff. Like they're not the 12-year-olds anymore.
I think in the book as well, Harry does feel like Ron leaving is his fault, and he doesn't know how to address it. And like I said, like Hermione's like been really sad for like a few weeks, and not that she's really, really happy at the end of their dance, but I think it just is like a real comfort for her. Yeah,
it's something that she needed to keep her going, because I think they're both at this point. I mean, I
think through those scenes as well, them travelling alone for a while, it seems like it takes up a lot of that film, and I feel like that's just a nice part of that.
It just takes it further, because if Ron left and come back 2 minutes later, it would be like, oh, he wasn't gone for long, but they delay it so long, especially when you get the whole Godric's Hollow stuff. It just adds more to Harry and Hermione's friendships.
Yeah, like in the graveyard and things as well, you see it again where Hermione produces like a wreath, and it's just that thing that she's always comforting him, but it's
his time to do it for her.
He steps up and it's there for her, and I just think it's really nice.
Number 3, we have one of, obviously the big 3 because it's our third choice. We have the Dumbledore's Death, which we're going to kind of include the cave beforehand with the Horcrux stuff because that does tie into it and is directly before it.
Yeah, I wanted to include the cave mainly because I think it's the first time that you see how vulnerable Dumbledore can be, and that throughout all the films, like we've said, like he's made to be like the best wizard, and not that like he's a bit undefeatable, and then Harry's left by himself to kind of sort himself out a little bit there.
And it's the way that he's like keep drinking it. He's like, you've got to. Harry's obviously a bit like confused. He's in Dumbledore in the state,
and I think it's hard for Harry as well to just the whole scene is just a good scene between them two. I think as characters.
Yeah, and especially with the whole build up of that film, showing them two together and doing their Horcruxing thing.
Yeah.
And then you do get the whole Horcrux, and then obviously it does tie into his death, which is kind of... I'm guessing we're extending this up until he dies and the wand waving in the air.
Yeah.
So obviously when he dies, what I love is the scene with Malfoy beforehand, where...
Yeah, which kind of ties in to my number 8 as well, where Draco's been forced to do this, but he's not 100% sure of it.
No, that's it, because with Malfoy, he's kind of lowering his wand with Dumbledore, and Dumbledore's, saying, like, you tried to kill me, but you clearly don't want to. He's like, there's still time for you to come back, and it's when Malfoy kind of breaks down. He's like, they're going to kill me, they're going to kill my family, I've got to do this. And then you get his auntie Bellatrix appear.
Yeah.
And I think Dumbledore at this point knows he's going to die, and I think he's almost waiting for Snape, because he does tell Harry to go and get Snape, doesn't he? So it's just one of them moments where I think it's big for the character of Malfoy, because at this point, if he was an outright villain, he would have killed Dumbledore. But he never does, whereas by leaving it and delaying it, you do get Snape appear, which is a massive point, which heads into the final film.
Because even though you're made to believe that Snape is a bit bad, it's never really massively confirmed. It's just kind of little things throughout the earlier books.
Yeah, and he's just because he hates...
He hasn't actually done anything
bad.
Yeah.
Just because he hates Harry's dad, there's always the connection that Snape's a horrible bloke, and
but I think for people who hadn't read the books at this point, you then are just convinced that
he's pure
Snape's
evil.
been behind it from like the start.
But I mean, when he does kill him, you can see when he says Avada Kedavra, he's quite like hesitant to say it, but he still does it.
Yeah, and I think because they'd pre-planned it as well, hadn't they, with Dumbledore before saying like, Snape, please, and then he does it. Yeah, it's
quite a big moment, because you're right. I mean, obviously we've seen these films knowing what was going to happen, but if you hadn't read the books, I bet even when Dumbledore says please to Snape, they might think he's begging for him to save him.
Yeah.
When he just outright kills him, but obviously we find out later on that it is for the other reasons completely.
I think as well, I always question whether Draco disarming Dumbledore is something that Dumbledore did want because of the Elder Wand.
Yeah, because they knew that Voldemort was going to eventually go for it.
Yeah.
And it does tie in massively. I mean, obviously the books are at this point, so the sort of director and stuff knows, but J.K. Rowling specifically had Malfoy disarming him because she knew what she wanted to do in the next film.
Yeah.
Which I think's quite... I mean, I've always said that how of a genius she is. She always hints at the future things to come, and I think with this one she had it planned out in her head, but...
I think it's that thing as well, like Voldemort assumed that it was Snape. Obviously he wasn't at the tower, whereas Harry was, so Harry knows that
it was Malfoy all along.
Yeah, that the Elder Wand is his.
And then I think it just makes Snape's death sadder that he got killed for the wrong reasons.
Which we'll talk about
later on.
But yeah, and then obviously Dumbledore falls off the astronomy tower.
The Dumbledab, they call it now, where the slow motion midair.
But yeah, and then I think it's the whole scene afterwards in the courtyard with everyone raising their wands.
Yeah.
That's just, I think it's just really powerful.
And I think
it's sad.
It's the soundtrack.
Tear-jerking moment.
It's the soundtrack, and it's when you see McGonagall crying, then Madame Pomfrey comes back after like 4 films and she's crying as well. And everyone's there, and it is when they start lifting the wands in the air. Like, it is a really like powerful moment for the films. Yeah,
and I think it as well. At the same time, Bellatrix is there like destroying the Great Hall, and I think it's just that thing again where her character doesn't care about what she's doing.
No,
she's just doing what she wants.
And it kind of makes her like, she's like, what everyone loves the decent villain.
Yeah.
And the more mental they make her, I mean, we spoke before about Umbridge, like we both love Umbridge. She hasn't made it onto this list, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But she's got these amazing like villain scenes, and the same with Bellatrix, the way she's just pure evil, destroying the Great Hall.
But they're characters that if you didn't have, it wouldn't have been the same. You couldn't have just had Voldemort.
Yeah, because it would have been...
He needs the psychic. Bella.
Yeah, it needs like it's so like 2-dimensional as well, that if she was just a really boring, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill her. Whereas because she's mental, because she obviously has her way of killing people, it just makes her funner, and that's what I love Helena Bonham Carter when she's doing it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think
she plays it really, really well.
I don't think you could get anyone else to do it that well, because she's just so mental in real life.
Yeah.
And I think when they're all in the courtyard with the wands in the air, it's when they're cutting to everyone. I don't know if Hagrid's in it, but it's the whole build-up of... I don't know if Hagrid... Because obviously his hut's on fire just afterwards.
I think it's stranger that people aren't as shocked. They are just generally very, very sad.
Yeah, and it's when everyone... Because it's mainly the teachers that are crying and then everyone else is upset. But obviously there's the whole thing that Dumbledore is like loved by all of them. Obviously everyone used to think Dumbledore and McGonagall had a thing. We know that was now Dumbledore and Grindelwald.
Yeah.
But I think it's just they didn't expect it. Although obviously we find out later on he had the curse and he would have died within a year. It's the whole having the Death Eater mark over the top of the school. I don't think people saw it come in.
No, I think it just rubbed salt in the wound, didn't it? Really.
Yeah, and then you find out that the locket was a fake, which kind of makes his death even more pointless.
Yeah, at the time, because like you said, you still don't know that he's had the curse.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's died for nothing.
And
I think that's how Harry feels as well.
Yeah, because he kind of just murmurs, "Oh yeah, it was a fake. It's RAB and this, that, and the other." But I think even if it was fake, that adds more like power to it that he would have died for nothing. Because you think Dumbledore would go down fighting Voldemort, which in theory he does, getting the curse.
Yeah.
But just to do it at like the place he works.
I think as well, just after that, when Harry does go after Snape, I think then as well it's confirmed again, like we were saying before at the top of the tower, that Snape is now on the dark side. Like he has gone. Like for people who haven't read the books, that is how you feel. Because
you see him, he's kind of walking them all through the school and stuff, and he's just getting them out.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole beatdown of Harry, where Harry's just trying to like get to him, and he's like, I'm the Half-Blood Prince. He's like, how dare you use my spell against me?
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a cool reveal. Although the Half-Blood Prince, it is important to it. Me and Chris spoke. He doesn't really think it's that big a deal, but the reveal of it is kind of cool because you forget about the Half-Blood Prince for ages.
Yeah, I think as well, Harry starts to like become really attached to the book, and I think he likes the person who's in this book, and then to find out that it was then Snape
who killed Dumbledore.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a struggle there between
the realisation of it all.
Who Snape is and who Harry thinks he is.
Yeah, and it just adds more to the character of Snape, for which they obviously go down. I mean, I keep saying that we'll talk about it later, but every time something happens with Snape, it does tie into his final scenes, which are probably one of the most important scenes of the entire franchise.
Number 2 was my choice, and it is the Snape v McGonagall in part 2 of the Deathly Hallows. I think the whole build-up from the scene before, as the Order come in, Harry has his little speech. He's a bit emotional.
You mean, how dare you stand where he stood?
Yeah. But then I think it's then again that it's McGonagall who steps out in front of him, and she's been at the school. Like, if you've read the books, if not, I apologise because that's what we keep saying. She's only stayed there to protect pupils, and then I think this is her chance. Like, she's been hating on Snape for a while now. She feels that there's been like a lot of disloyalty from him, and I think she trusted him as well because Dumbledore trusted him. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have noticed in the film, but McGonagall is the only one throwing out spells. Snape is just protecting himself, and then he does something that's quite cool, and he hits both the Carrow siblings because I think they mentioned that in the book as well, that that's why he does it, because he obviously doesn't agree with what they have been doing because they have been torturing students.
Yeah, I mean, in the book there's a whole scene with the Carrows where they're saying, we're going to torture all you kids, or we can blame it on them, whereas obviously Snape, there's hints. I mean, earlier on there's a whole drama where he gives Ginny detention and Harry's shit scared like he's probably killed her, when they find out later on that her detention was just going into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. So the hints are always there, but I think by not putting that in the film, you're still thinking Snape's a bad guy.
Yeah, and like Neville, when you first see Neville again and they ask why he's so beaten up, he mentions that it's the Carrow twins. Yeah,
and they're not really spoke about massively or shown massively.
But I just think Snape,
when he slyly, he wants to get rid of them because at the end of the day, he's mainly at Hogwarts to protect the kids as well, although he's got to stay in the role of the bad guy.
I think as well it's just another strong character build for McGonagall, because even though she has always looked out for Harry, like, she has just stepped in front of him, and you see like Snape goes to lower his wand but he can't lose face, so he's like, and sticks with it, but
he doesn't go for any attacking spells as well. Every single one's sort of him defending himself. But I think the reason I love this scene, I think most people do, is it's just pure silence. It feels like you're there, and McGonagall, they're not doing the whole talking spells. McGonagall's just there, like she's had enough, and she's just like throwing everything she can.
I think as well, when the Great Hall doors open, like, and all the Order comes in, it's not anyone else that comes to Harry first. It is her that instantly steps in front of him.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole mother role. I mean, the films do a really good job of McGonagall, but like everyone that's read the books, they love her a lot more because she's so like great in them. She's one of probably the best characters in the whole franchise.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that moment where she kind of, when she does defeat him, she lights all the fires again. It's like McGonagall's finally become the headmistress.
I think then there's a nice moment between her and Harry as well, where she says that like she's glad to see him.
Yeah.
And like she's obviously going to do whatever she can for him.
Because she is like a mother figure in all of it. And when you think of the Battle of Hogwarts, the only reason that's in theory started is because she's giving Harry time to find the Horcrux. Yeah. Whereas she could have easily just kicked him out and, you know, chosen Team Voldemort, but she's willing to like sacrifice everything.
I think
just
as
for
well,
Harry.
she didn't question his plan at all. I think it's just like, you've come this far, like I think you can do the rest by yourself. Like, what do you need to do? And
I think she knew that he's under Dumbledore's orders, because there's that scene in Half-Blood where she's like, you know, you can speak to me, and he's like, I can't. She's like, fair enough. Yeah. Because she's obviously got the loyalty of Dumbledore. Yeah. But it's a nice victory for her. She's got some great moments as it goes on, but I think that's like as a big finale.
Yeah, I think because in the last 2 films, you only really see her after they get to Hogwarts in part 2. She's not in part 1 at all.
Yeah, oh, that's a good point as well.
So you've missed her for that whole film, and then she comes back with this, and
cause she's got some really good stuff with Umbridge, which is like great in the 5th one.
Yeah, they are also good character, because she isn't a huge character, but she just has scenes that are quite.
She's like
detailed about the person that she is. Yeah,
it's like for supporting members, because you've got the main trio, you've got the sort
then
of
you've got that little outside circle.
It's just nice to have someone just come into it, even if it's for 2 or 3 minutes. It's quite memorable, and it just adds something else to it, which I think she does perfectly. Even from the earliest of films, she's there outside Harry's home.
Yeah, when she first turns into a cat on the table.
It's Ron's like, bloody hell, and she's like, although they're late, she's still quite nice to him, and she's the mother figure, and she's kind of, that's had her like, not heyday, but she's kind of peaked getting the school under control now, and I think everyone wanted her to be the headmistress, and she finally is.
Yeah, you don't hear about that in the film, but that is what happens in the books.
The next bit that's going to happen, before we get to number 1, I've been asked.
Our number 1 is the same as Chris's.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk about Chris's other picks very briefly, because he has asked me to send them through. He did originally send me a list of arguably 30 odd with the message, I don't know how to get this down to 5, but eventually he did so. So I'm just going to read through his. A few of them have spoke about. His 5th choice is the same choice as ours, with the Sirius' Truth and Prisoner of Azkaban. Again, like we like a scene. Chris would say it's very Shakespearean, which is why he loves it. His 4th choice, we can talk about briefly, is the Resurrection Stone scene.
Yeah, it is a good scene. I think we debated about having it in.
Yeah, and it's one of them. The only bad thing about it, because it's kind of cool, he accepts he's going to die, and then he gets to see them all again. And then I've always laughed, he never speaks to his dad.
Yeah, it is an odd one. I think as well, I was saying I could understand why Sirius would be there, and I think obviously Lupin makes up their 4, obviously bar Pettigrew, but you don't see Lupin die.
No.
And I think if you had, and then he had been there as well, I could kind of see
it a bit differently.
Yeah.
And especially even with Lupin's death, they just, I mean, even in the books, it's the same as the film, Harry just stumbles across the bodies on the floor.
Yeah.
And
I think it could have been a bit bigger.
Yeah, especially with, I mean, him and Tonks, it's a shame because they go through it a lot in the books with the detail, but
and it isn't mentioned much in the films.
It's just like part 1's like, oh yeah, we just got married, and then I think later on it's, oh, we just had a kid.
Yeah, but I don't think that's even meant. It's kind of hinted at in in part 1.
They never properly speak about Teddy Lupin, who
which then becomes Harry's godchild, and then
they out in the 19 years later. I think he's dating, I think, one of Fred or George's Weasley kids. So there's all this sort of extra stuff which, you know, they could have added in with a few more seconds, but it's just a bit of a shame seeing Lupin, because he is a really cool character, but it feels a bit out of place to have him in the Resurrection Stone scene. But it is quite a good scene in the whole Harry facing death. It's just, I would have expected him to speak to his dad, and I think he should have.
Yeah. I don't know if at this point he's a bit annoyed with his dad. He's been bullying Snape. Snape's turned out to be a better man than his dad.
He'd rather be with Lily.
Yeah.
Chris's number 3 is actually one of mine that almost made the list. It's the Gilderoy Lockhart classroom scene, and I've got the specific instruction of including the deleted scenes with the questionnaire, which is when Lockhart gives this brilliant introductory speech, and he gives them all a quiz about him. I mean, I've spoke to you before that I absolutely love Gilderoy Lockhart. He's just this like bumbling idiot that's hilarious. Chris loves him. He's one of his favourite characters as well. Mm-hmm. And it's just this hilarious introduction that he doesn't have a clue what he's doing. The way he just smiles to himself, even in his portraits, which are painting himself in another portrait. And just every time he's on screen, I love it. But the whole questionnaire scene's brilliant when he sort of... I don't know if you've seen the deleted scene with the test. Yeah,
I have.
Where he's like marking it and he's there like, God, everyone knows my favourite colour's lilac.
I think, as I said before, I'm not a massive fan, especially of Chamber of Secrets, which might pain Chris. Sorry.
Especially when we get to his next moment, which is the ending to the Chamber of Secrets with Hagrid's return. We spoke about this in our review of Chamber of Secrets. Chris loved everything of the music and the way it's really done well. I don't really speak about it then, but I quite like the moment. But in terms of Chamber of Secrets, I think there's a lot of other good ones. But I think it's just the moment and the kind of finishing of the film. It's a nice scene to end on. Although I've always said Hagrid went to Azkaban and came back perfectly fine, whereas in theory he should be like traumatized from what he's seen.
Yeah.
But it's a nice scene.
Yeah. Chamber of Secrets has it gets just that little bit darker as each film goes on.
Yeah.
That one, then it does finish quite nice. Yeah, it's a nice ending, definitely. And everyone loves Hagrid.
Yeah. He's not in the later films enough, which is a shame. But he's everything from "You're a Wizard" to shouting and screaming in the later ones is funny. Right, and I think that I can't do Chris's number one because at the end of the day it's the same as ours.
Yeah.
And it's the same as 99% of people's choice as well.
I would have thought so.
It's Snape's Memories.
I think the whole scene is just iconic.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's followed from the first film right to the end.
And I think with Snape's Memories, I've spoken to you loads before about it. It's the build-up of him in the early films being the kind of the teacher. I mean, the first ever time we see Snape, I'm happy they put it into the memories because the camera just...
I think it ties in. I think because people were confused. When I first watched the first film, I was a bit confused as to why Snape was looking at him in that way. And
then you eventually learn that it is all because of Lily. At this point, obviously, now we're talking about the memories, we can talk that Snape's been in love with Lily his whole life. There's a young guy, Petunia, in there who's calling him a weirdo.
Yeah.
But I think it's the way this is so hard to describe because everyone knows it. But
I think as well you see how he loses Lily to James, and I think that's in the memories because I think that is really, really painful for him.
Yeah, because it's everything from the sorting house of she goes into Gryffindor and I think she sits with Sirius and James from that point.
Yeah, she does.
And he just as a kid he just looks a bit lost because he wants her to be in Slytherin. Obviously, he knew he'd end up in Slytherin straight away. But in the book...
Again, in the book...
There's a great cameo by Lucius Malfoy as a prefect introducing Snape to the Slytherin table, which I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah. I think also, again, in the books, there's like a conversation between Lily and Snape where she's basically saying, you're hanging around with some not nice people. And I think that's where their friendship does start to turn.
Yeah, because he's like, well, you like James and I like my guys.
Because in his memories, it just kind of jumped from the middle of school to then them as adults. Whereas I think there's a lot more that went on between Lily and Snape as he became like a Death Eater and she didn't.
Going back to the flashback in the fifth film, which they call Snape's worst memory when he's getting bullied, what the book did is Lily tries to help Snape and he calls her a mudbud. So at this point, Harry's always thought Snape's a lot worse because he's assaulted his mum. And then what I love in the memories, they don't do it in the film, but this is the book again. There's this moment where someone uses the word mudblood to describe Hermione to Snape, and he snaps back like, "Don't ever use that word."
Yeah.
So it's this kind of scene where he's
always protecting her.
Yeah, like he obviously regretted calling her
Hermione. Then that was Lily.
Oh yeah,
protecting Lily.
And like everything stems back to Lily, and I think with the scene in the film, it's the montage between not the present because it's all the past, but the past of Lily and James's death at Godric's Hollow. You'll then get him walking up to the house, and then you'll get the clip of like Dumbledore
on the cliff.
Yeah, and what I like is every time I know I'm jumping because we'll go through it again, but they jump between the pieces so well that you do get that really like powerful ending where he stumbles across the body of her, and I think that is one of the most like.
I think
powerful.
it's just raw emotion from Snape, and it's unusual to see him like that because he is so monotone throughout the films.
He's the only character to have never changed his costume in 7 films.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and the way he speaks, like his lack of enthusiasm for basically anything, and then to see this, it's like a character of like. Is probably like 3 minutes long,
and it just changes everything. Yeah, and I think with this scene as well, you do get the revelations before we hit the always line. There's everything of Dumbledore revealing to himself that I'm gonna die in a year, so you're gonna have to be the one to kill me.
Yeah,
I already know that Malfoy's been told to kill me, so you'll do it for him, which then sort of adds the layers of why he does kill him. It was the right thing to do. And I've always said, I was chatting to Chris, that I would love to have been able to rewatch these films and not know.
No, yeah.
Because that scene would have been so different.
Yeah. I think because, like you said, we've both read the books and we were waiting for it. In the books, obviously, when you read, you make your own mind up about how you view things, but I think they, portrayed it really, really well. Did a really good job of it in the films.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the few things that you could say is better in the film than the book, because they don't have him at Godric's Hollow. Because obviously I've been reading them recently, and what I love is when you do eventually get to the always line, it finishes there, because you get the revelation that he sent the Patronus to the dough. Dumbledore, says after all this time. Oh, before that, actually, I want to talk about the whole raising a pig to be slaughtered, because I think that's one of the more powerful moments where Dumbledore says there'll be a time where he's got to know that he's a Horcrux and he's got to die. And
then because you're made to believe that Snape really does dislike Harry, and then Dumbledore says, "Don't tell me you've grown feelings for the boy." And then obviously it's proven that he's still in love with Lily.
So that's
and I think even Dumbledore's shocked by that,
because he's changed his Patronus to the dough. And I think with that scene, Dumbledore's face, he is shocked by all of it. And it just adds that much there, because Snape is only there for Lily to look over Harry, and it's quite nice that he has grown a connection to Harry. Because he definitely didn't have it from the beginning, but I think as the series went on, he probably sort of thought about it a lot more.
I think what I also like about the memories is that, again, because Dumbledore has died, you haven't seen him through the films, and then even though these are classed as memories, it is another scene where Dumbledore is a character again.
Yeah, and
he's no longer dead in those memories.
And it kind of like changes your perception of him, because you think Dumbledore cares, whereas the whole time he's only liked Harry to bring him to the moment to tell him he's got to die.
Oh, see, you are made to think that, but I do think he did care.
He does, but it's the why does he care thing, and I think obviously a lot of it is the Horcrux, but they don't say it in the film at the platform.
I think again as well, obviously in the books, the Rita Skeeter has brought out her book on Dumbledore, and Hermione's read it, and Harry's picked up bits from it, and he's now got this new perception of Dumbledore. Especially
with the Ariana stuff, the Grindelwald, was he a dark magic? Because they don't really go for that. In the film, they like to keep him... They talk about bits of that Rita Skeeter book, but they never go into detail on Dumbledore having that shady history.
Yeah.
Which...
And I think it changes as a reader. It does change your mind about Dumbledore a little bit.
Yeah, because they have to leave it to a paragraph at the platform vision later on with Harry, where Dumbledore goes through everything, but I think tying into Fantastic Beasts now, they can explore that angle, so by the time the Fantastic Beasts series finishes, that might even change the sort of perception of the Harry Potter films when you get to these key moments.
Yeah. I think as well, I like just before Snape is killed, that Harry does go and help him.
Yeah.
He does go around to him, like he obviously could have just left, and I think it shows that Harry doesn't, even after everything, he
kind of pities him.
Yeah.
And I think with that scene, it's when he says, "You've got your mother's eyes," because Snape's never spoke of Lily to him before.
Yeah. And then I imagine if you were Harry, that would be such a weird, even though he's heard it from everyone else, to hear it from Snape,
who's dying as well.
Yeah.
It's a hint, and I think if Snape hadn't have said that, he might not have took the memories.
Yeah.
But it's such like a throwaway line, because it's not in the book either. They added that in, which I think changes everything of Snape's last words, because it's a kind of fitting way for him to go. But I think as a scene, it is everyone's favourite scene.
I think it just ties all the books together.
Yeah.
Without that
it's a lot. You wouldn't understand a lot of it, and especially when Dumbledore reveals.
It's just so many little endings for other books just tied in really nicely into one about Snape. Horcruxes, the curse, like that's from like the sixth book. And it just ties them all together, I think.
Yeah, and even the little things like this is why he can talk to snakes. The whole build-up of the Godric's Hollow all them years ago.
Yeah, I think it shows Harry a bit about himself as well. Obviously, he thought that Doe that had appeared in the forest was his mum.
When it was Snape's love for her, and then you do get the immortal always line, followed by him cradling Lily's body, which is still one of the most like powerful scenes I think I've ever seen. And I think that will stand like the test of time.
Definitely, especially with Alan Rickman dying this year.
I know.
Rest in peace, Alan Rickman.
Another one gone from 2016, which has been awful. But that certainly adds perception to that scene, knowing he's not here anymore as well. Because it is such a wild scene.
I don't think anyone else would have played him so well.
No, and the famous story is that he declined the role of Snape. So then J.K. Rowling took him aside and told him everything. Obviously, the directors didn't know, the cast didn't know. She hadn't officially written that part yet. She told him absolutely everything because that's who she wanted, and he took it on because of that one scene.
Yeah.
So
and I think as well because without that scene, Snape is a boring character. Kills Dumbledore, but other than that, he's just quite boring.
He's got a few funny lines here and there, and he's just that teacher that no one likes. But when really, he's one of the most important characters, and unfortunately, Harry names his son after him. Yeah,
Harry chose bad names for all of his children, but
took no consideration into his brother-in-law dying at that battle either. It's his mum, it's his dad. Which we didn't speak
about, but I did want it to be in there, but it didn't quite make the cut.
Definitely. And I think that's everything.
Think so.
So this has been the top 10 greatest moments. I am not used to doing outro videos. This is Chris' territory, not mine. Be sure to stick around for the rest of Harry Potter month. We've got reviews to go up for both parts of the Deathly Hallows film. I think Half-Blood Prince will be up by the time I upload this, when I get around to editing it. And next week we have a special Battle of the Brackets, which is going to be the greatest Harry Potter character of all time. Obviously, 90% of people have just written their number one favourite, but I think that's going to be everything from today. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I've had fun. It's been good.
And I guess thank you all for listening. Be sure to stick around for our future content.
Thank you.